Well, Sue and John have definitely been a major part of that in their lives here, working at Guilford. Sue and your children and your PTO experience, you've touched lives that way and seen things. What additions to that would you like to share with us?
Well, as far as the whole idea of what the community is or can give to the school system, of course what jumps to my mind is that they do pay all the bills of the school system. That's one obvious contribution the community makes. And so it's very important for us to maximize our resources in every way possible.
You've got some great experiences in being a CPA and being the lead financial person at a for-profit company to take and see that in a different perspective than many other people, especially those who are actually on the inside of a public system. And so I mean, that's an important perspective to bring to the board and to say we haven't had a CPA on the board, I don't think, ever since I've been involved. And I think this is a great opportunity to turn around and elect a CPA, not only a CPA, but also a female. Now that representation go forward as well and have a balance on the board, continue to go forward that way. John's had some lacrosse experience that he's brought to the table as part of enrichment, among other things.
Played a lot of lacrosse. Actually, I was when I first came here to Guilford about 5 years ago, I was looking to get a little bit more involved in town, and lacrosse is something I love to do and actually still play. And I decided to go and check out the local lacrosse scene, and I went to a board meeting and sat in for the first year, went to every single board meeting and listened to what they had to say. Somehow, the next year I got elected president of the Guilford Youth Lacrosse Association, whereby I ended up taking the group, which had some good infrastructure to it, but it really needed a little bit more solid foundation. We brought in some additional people from other parents. It's tough sometimes getting volunteers because it's another commitment somebody has to make. We brought in some really good volunteers. We grew the program from about 180 kids to about 250 kids. We've added a couple of other areas of experience, for example, going down to slightly younger, to the first and second graders. And this is not about teaching them how to really do a skill extremely well. This is teaching about socializing, about the kids after school, how to be part of a team and how to be a good sportsman and things of that nature, not necessarily how fast you can shoot a ball or how well you can catch. It's more about the respect of having for the other children that are actually out there. So there's a lot of things we try and teach them, not just about competing and winning, it's also about life skills and about how to be able to, when you come across some sort of an obstacle, whether it's a person or a skill or something like that, how to overcome that, how to actually find help, get help, learn about it, teach yourself about it, and then kind of really enact those skills that you might be learning.
One of the things that the board has been involved with since Dr. Porcello came on board, and he has been a proponent of, is professional learning communities and how that impacts in the deliberate decisions that you make about how children are educated, what the learning experience is, the teamwork that's involved in education. And each of us as parents has had some feedback on that over the past couple of years as that has developed. But one of the questions that keeps getting asked is, what do you want the children to know, and then how do you know when they've learned it? And that relates back to a couple of things that both Sue and John alluded to here, is then reaching out and teaching, and then the follow-up is then when they've learned something, how do you take and differentiate to have those who have learned it move on to the next stage where you still work with those who need more assistance at getting the skills that they're
Well, one of the best things that's one of the big questions that's out there today is not about town's doing great in terms of our test scores, but are we becoming a nation of great test takers? Okay, or are we actually teaching our kids not just how to take a test, but how to actually provide for themselves in life and how to deal with life in general? It's hard. It's a tough balance. You really want to see those scores do well. You want to see how well your community's doing. You want to challenge your kids, but do they just have the great ability to take tests? And are they not? And they're really too much focused on just that one specific area, as opposed to trying to enrich their lives through so many other things that could be available to them. And when it comes down to it, a lot of it's about services. What kind of services can you provide the kids in terms of the Board of Ed? What kind of other services can we actually provide the teachers and the children to get different experiences about life?
And then it comes back to, on the financial side of it, what is it that you balance out the processes of getting there and allocating those dollars? And I know, Steve, you've got some strong points you have to make about that.
Well, my own interest is in traditional academic achievement. What I've seen, I figured out just jotting down here that I've gone through 38 school years with my children, and I'll have 52 school years in by the time I've done. But some of the things that I've noticed they come home and talk about that have changed over the years. And one example is that the AP and honors and advanced courses that we offer to our students at the top end of the process. Several years ago, it was much more difficult for a student to get admitted into some of those courses. They would be told, we have room for 18 kids in a particular course, and you're not one of those 18. Now, the whole focus there has changed, where more courses are offered, and children are not being turned away from a challenge that they seek because they're not one of the finite number. I think we need to expand more of that sort of opportunity for our children. More offerings available to more kids, especially in the traditional academic areas.
That was a definite decision of the Board of Education along with the superintendent in terms of changing that leadership to offer more. And again, looking at a big wider world picture of if they're given a challenge they want to take and go for it, then let them learn how to succeed at it, as opposed to having a cutoff that says, okay, here's how many slots, and then you've got to fight for those available slots and prerequisites and so forth. Linda, the Spanish program that is in now, we've got it in all the way from 1st to 12th. You've been a supporter of that, and you're, I think, the most prominent bilingual person on our board, which is a very proud distinction. I'm sorry that my high school French has not carried me very far.
I mean, you know, that was just a great accomplishment that that we worked, you know, hard to achieve, and we're not done yet because I want to see it in kindergarten too. We're working on it though. You know, that it's just one. It's about balance. There are so many hours in the day, and there are so many dollars that we have to spend. And I think that our challenge as a board is to keep up with the times and figure out how we're going to balance what we want with what we have, and you know, how does that all work together? You know, obviously, if you're spending the money on language or technology, it's got to be coming from somewhere else, and what are we giving up in the process? And I think that we just have to keep the lines of communication open about those decisions that we make amongst ourselves as board members, as well as with our community. As a community, if we decide that we are or are not going to spend money on facilities, where's the money going to come from, and what are we willing to give up for a little while? And where does that fit in the bigger picture of priorities?
We'll have more in-depth conversation on facilities at another point separate from this conversation, but that leads into the money decisions that we'll be facing on budget times. The Board of Education budget cycle generally starts in October with our annual budget cycle is from July 1st through until June 30th. And we are just starting the 2009-10 year right now, but October 2009 actually is a beginning process for another 20 months farther ahead. And I think we all recognize that the economic climate, that it's going to be very tough for municipalities going ahead and raising revenue and making decisions for carrying forth the obligations we have as a community. And looking at those choices, we're going to have to take and be looking for innovative ideas and ways to take and save money, as well as looking at consolidating programs, sharing resources together with other towns, and ways to take and do that. One of the things that we did with the teachers union this past time we bargained with them, we did an interest-based bargaining trial with them. That was the first time it was ever done here in the state of Connecticut, and accolades to that particular group for doing it, as well as for our willingness as a board to step off the tree in a different direction to move forward with that. I think if it wasn't for that, we would turn around and have had layoffs this past year during the budget cycle, because it wouldn't have been a point where our employees were then trusting to turn around and do the pay freeze that they did to enable us to turn around and not lay off staff to be able to continue to offer the services that we are.